traffic control backed up. That's a shame, but that's, you can tell how much they cared about the public. And today I just want to have it, at least for Paul, but in the back is someone named Steve Gebauer. He's going to be replacing me, I suspect. So he's here today to find out what it is that he talks about for 4 or 5 hours. I was told you want to be here till 4:30 this morning. Yeah, that's what I heard. So this is about environmental program delivery, and the reason that I'm here is that storms happen, and there's a permit that says that if it rains, I can't just let the water discharge without going through treatment. So once you take all the vegetation off, you have to actually do something to protect the soils from discharging to the waters. Well, a lot of bridges are open to railroads, but how many think railroads have waters of the state? They're called ditches. I mean, they're surface waters, and we're supposed to protect. How many think it's a good idea to derail a train? And I'm going to go through that on a case study later that are just insane on some of the things we do. So part of the stormwater, we know they happen, and it's according to the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, it's a plan. And the plan is to be ready for the storm as opposed to, oh, it rained. So we're trying to be ready. And you represent the best eyes and ears I have to look over the edge and say, you know, I don't think we're ready. And should we talk about being ready after the storm or before the storm? Which one's going to be most cost effective if our goal is swimmable, fishable, and drinkable water? It's before, that's kind of obvious. So I'm going to make you do a little bit of work and then you just sit back and coast and ride. What temporary controls do you think are needed to build a bridge? This is the St. Croix, the project that Paul's talked about, Junk Highway 36 over the St. Croix. There's more than 10, but what kind of controls do you think? I'm showing them in a picture there. And what's that for? It's mostly a joke. Because you're not allowed to use the water as a sediment trap or an oil trap, but the hope is that you're going to hide the dirty water and not make the whole river brown, so it'll be localized dirt. And if you have an oil, it floats in this idea to try to keep it there, or trash. But it's really a joke. It's a show, no go. It's never been, you know, something we can use. I'm going to say more about that. What else? Because you got the banana. That's what I call it, a banana. What's that? Biologs. Well, they probably are out there, but yes, that we have a combination of sediment control or perimeter control of some form. But on a mega project like this, I heard it, sheet piling. If you're going to get serious about resource protection on a mega project, let's say 600 million, how many think sheet piling is probably one of the more cost-effective BMPs for causeways and getting into the river, getting out of the river, getting onto barges, and so on? How many think that's more effective than a banana? Well, if we're really going to be serious about protecting the water resource, we've got to have serious BMPs. And how many think the banana costs less than the sheeting? Yeah. I mean, it's all about money. I didn't bid it that way. That's why it seems to be an awful yelling and screaming. So what else you got? So we've got to have 3.
Silt fence.
Be some kind of a silt fence. What's the probability if I've got wetlands you can't see that the wooded areas are all delineated as wetlands? Do you think I have silt fence, or could it be something more robust? Might it have to be 2 of something?
A berm.
Could be a berm, but we use an awful lot of Jersey barriers, so super duty silt fence. And it had to be 2 of something, because you have to have redundancy when you're within 50 feet. Now I put the road, the causeway, right through a wetland to get to the river. So sheeting is considered redundant all by itself. But if it wasn't sheeting, then we'd have to have 2 of something. So sand totes would be something new in the contract, that would be there. So do you think there's secondary containment or spill management of the crane? That's a BMP, it's for storm water. So how much oil and fuel do I want onto the causeway and into the river? None. That's right. And it was really fun here, but what other BMP do you have? I like this project a lot. It's one of my, this was so much fun. Paul didn't have as many good days as I did, because every day I was out there was a great day. What else?
Green mat?
What's that? Grain mat? Someone say that?
This guy.
Because we did use mats. In this case, it's a solid road, but we did use drivable mats to get out to try to minimize compaction, because that is another permit requirement. What else?
Blanket.
We use a lot of erosion control, so we blanket and mulch and soil covers. And that would include the Chia Pet seed mixes. That is a real BMP. And how many think you're most cost effective to minimize disturbance until you're ready to wreck it? I mean, if you're going to save money, why would you let them open up something they're not going to stabilize? And if they do open it up, does it have to be stabilized, whether I like it or not, within 7 or 14 days, whether special impaired or 24 hours, 200 feet back where the water is. So how many think clean, pre-washed riprap is a BMP? Should I use the dirtiest rock you can find and use the river to wash it off? Oh, that's an illicit discharge. Just call the state duty officer. That's just crazy talk. That would not be acceptable. Now, when you put decks above, are there BMPs on a deck as well as on the ground? Could there be perimeter control on the deck? I don't know if Paul, he knew me well enough at the time, but there are others. Are you kidding me? I have to have perimeter control on the deck? What could happen on a bridge deck that shouldn't be touching the soil below? How many think there's any grouting going on? I don't know, there are a lot of cementitious things going on. How many things leak?
Everything.
Everything! I'm amazed. I mean, there was one that fighting with the contractor, because, by the way, I use a quarter, so if they drip some oil or some other agent on, let's say, soil or concrete, if it's bigger than a quarter, it needs to be picked up. Oh, they're mad. Now, you don't have to report it until you hit 5 gallons worth of quarter dots. But they went the whole mile of the deck dripping. So it's one of those man lifts, or whatever you want to call them, people lifts. But dripped, like every 4 inches all the way across. It was an uncured deck. Well, I finally got MnDOT's attention. You think that's a good idea to have oils and things on an uncured deck? Oh no, they didn't think that was a good idea at all. Do you have the right to go through the engineer and say, should a piece of equipment that's not in good working order be taken off the project or made to work? I mean, that's one of the eyes that you have. So when you look at this, would you believe that Paul and other engineers had to protect the trees? How many think that bats and eagles have rights? Baby birds have rights. Huh?
It looks like it's fall, they're not nesting, don't worry about them.
Well, it could be the spring and they might be doing something. But it doesn't matter, so they always have rights. You'd be surprised, I'll say more about it, but how many birds think, look at all this new habitat. And perfect place to take that flange or that beam, that false work, and put a nest on it. Oh! So even one of your roles as an inspector is saying, there's an awful lot of bird activity here. You might want to say, now you're allowed to harass a bird until the egg drops, and then you don't get to harass anymore. So if you look at this site, you've got robust BMPs, Super Duty silt fence wrap, places so we avoid, again, Jersey barriers, because nobody likes to drive in Jersey barrier twice. Silt fence, by the way, seems to attract every vehicle on the site and drive it over. But Jersey barriers, they don't seem to drive over twice, so it's a great BMP. So there's a lot of spill containment. Porta potties are tethered. You've got them scattered all over the place here. We know spills are going to happen, and so we try to anticipate those things. So there usually are diapers under the cranes when they're semi-non-mobile anymore. And this might need maintenance, but we're really relying on land BMPs and not in water BMPs. So yes, it doesn't look right, but it's not necessarily wrong. So here's why I'm here, and I'm asking you, to be that inspector looking down and say, if it looks stupid, it is. If it's not done, and he hasn't seen any progress on stabilization for months on end, it's wrong. And so every trade has a different view of the world. How many think that everyone thinks the only important work is the one I do? And no one else's work is important, only my work. And that means I can wreck everyone else's work, because I'm here to do my work. So whether it's the painters, the fuelers, the concrete slippers, whatever it is, they all think it's, and they wreck everyone else's stuff, because it's not important. Only my stuff is important. And that's what I'm really trying to get everyone to believe, that everyone's work is important and respect that work of others. I really can't afford to do things twice. So whether you're a county inspector, can you really afford to do something twice? With the county budgets you guys lately have? It makes no sense, but we can't afford to do it right the first time. But we'll pay for it again. And we've got to stop this if we're going to really start saving money. And so that's why I really want to start thinking about deploying creativity. Are you, as a result of this class, likely to be more creative than you were before? I hope so. Because what you really are here is to problem solve. If you just said, hey, I'm going to stay 2 weeks and just sort of sit. No, I hope you realize you can do this. And you have a lot of things on your plate, but you're never alone. So if you don't know who to call Steve. Because otherwise, call me and I'll do something about it. I'm not here to love, by the way, just so you know. Love is what you do when you go home. When you go to work, you work. And work is not love. So if you're trying to make friends with the contractor, you're in the wrong business. Because this is not a buddy system. So if they're not doing what's required in the contract, you'll speak up, but you can't, you got to go through the engineer, just so you know. But there's layers on this stuff. So a case study, and I apologize, I know of at least one person in the class that knows this project really well, because I lived on this crazy project. And number one, when you get done at the end of the fall, my lesson learned here is the next time I'm gonna be the worst animal you've ever seen. When they're done, should drainage work before the onset of winter? And I'm giving you a hint. The water is supposed to go to the right of this picture. So how much ponding water should you want in railroad ballast grade to maximize bubbling of that railroad and see if we can't flip a train over? How many think this is one of the highest risky projects I've ever seen for failure to provide drainage properly? My God, I'm scared to death this is still going to happen. I'll show you some stain lines. So I'm going to go through a case study of, this is the contract, they didn't seem to care about anything. And so if you look at this area right up here, where you see these beams of false work that, for the pier here, they're taking them down, and they were stepping in more than knee-height water. You know how much fun that was? They're trying to take, they couldn't even get equipment up. The equipment would come down that slope and just slide. Couldn't even get it back up again.
So are they upstairs there so they can get up and down?
Well, you could walk up and down, but yes, you could not drive equipment. So the punky water, and they're trying to get that out, before the true depth of winter. And I felt so bad for them, not too bad, but the bridge contractor is different than the dirt contractor. But it was such a shame, and it's for lack of preparation. In this case, it didn't matter whether you're a good inspector or not, because they weren't going to listen to you anyway. But it's all that ponding water is really the problem. So what do you think the problem is? Do decks drain water? Does that water got to go someplace? And why the first order of business wouldn't be to direct the stormwater where the stormwater needs to go is beyond me. How many think there's no common sense in America? How many think there's no intelligence in construction? I mean, it exists, but boy, you really have to pull it out hard to get that goofy intelligence back onto the table. I don't know where it went. I don't know where it went. So we're going to look at this a little bit. And by the way, this bothers me to no end to have fuel ready to tip over the conveyance line. The railroad got upset, by the way, about having things too close because they like, well, apparently something's set on fire. They don't like things to burn. They had an upset about blanket. I didn't understand that, but I'm not the railroad. So when he had the false work, you're putting the iron down, rebar, no, the rebar. Where does that water go before the deck is placed? Wherever it wants. So you might have the false work in there, but it drains through the plywood and sort of drains all over the place. Not very fast, because you try to make seals on it, but please start paying attention to the walls and the soil. And I am recommending that you keep it a little bit proud, because it always settles. You can never get compaction. You can't get the equipment in there, so it always settles and it becomes a point of water. Does that make sense? So, okay, the water's going downhill. They did fight with me, and they got some things blanketed. And then the deck itself drains. Oh, God, I can't stand all that concrete, dirty, discharging to the water, receiving surface waters. So, okay, the water's got to go there. And then I found this, and I already knew about it. Anything wrong with this little joint? Huh?
It's wide open.
What? You're kidding me! Huh? I'm gonna think it's still wide open, just drives me nuts. So all this water now, so before it was just draining down, now it's draining to a corner here. And there's that thing. So I complained a lot. I said, this is just insane to me. And of course it snowed, and that snow melted. So what do you think happened when you had moisture that discharged and a beautiful gap draining the whole deck? It's a big deck. What do you think happened?
Lost some dirt.
Well, discharge right down off project limits. Well, I'm not surprised. Then they do some fixing down there, and they try to do some Band-Aid fixes. The soils are so goopy, so steep that it's hard to actually do any work on it. And that's a beautiful, this is 100% non-compliant. If I were the EPA, MPCA, this is already, it looks just like this now, frozen, but that's missing energy dissipation. It's still discharging dirty water off-site. No stabilization in a timely manner, and snow and frozen conditions aren't it. Huh. And so then you put some foam in. I mean, that helped. Okay, we'll solve that problem. Put foam in. No, I don't know why we can't put the expansion joint in, but I'm too stupid as just an environmental person. What do I know?
Did they leave the foam so it was flat out?
Well, you can see it just there. So here's the good looking inlet, but all that sneaky, now this is that smart water. I drink dumb water. It doesn't say smart on it. My wife drinks something that says smart on it. I just get the regular. So I get all the microplastics and all the picky water. So I don't know if you think that's gonna work. Of course, the pavement is dirty, that needs to be cleaned. So now that we get everything finally stabilized, and the most expensive way to do it, by the way, you know, they're actually flinging the soil over the guardrail. You'd think you'd want to get that in shape before, but no, not this person. So then that poor guy that's got to get the emulsified asphalt shoulder tacked down, you know how much extra time that, you see, no one cares about anyone else's work. You know how much extra time that took that guy? Huh. And the most stupid way to place soil is to take it off a side dump like that and kind of flick it over the guardrail. And even the mulch like this, because you can't even drive down there, is not necessarily going to give a good quality product. But sure as enough, what do you think happened? So we get her mulched, and that same damn joint blows out. This is even busted because the MnDOT knew that they're probably driving on it. And what do you think this is?
That's the head level.
Huh? Well, I'm not even in. So this went all the way down to the tracks. The other contractor shut down for the winter. This is not that many months ago. We had a strange fall that wouldn't decide to be fall or winter. So I don't know what to do. So I was fortunate that the lead inspector was on site yet. He wasn't looking at this area. But is it true that the prime is supposed to inspect the project a minimum of once per week of all areas? What's the probability the contractor hasn't been back? Just ran like crazy and doesn't care whether they ever get paid again, as far as I can tell. If I had my way, this would be delisted from ever working in Minnesota again. But I don't have any say in that. So now what's supposed to happen when you discover a failure? What's supposed to happen? Because someone like you is going to have to stare at this and deal with that contractor. Stabilize within 24 hours of discovery. But if you never discover it, you're good till spring. Except you're supposed to inspect after all rain event melts and any storms. We had a fall that wouldn't decide to be a fall. So they did get it filled, but again, it's sort of a Band-Aid, and the real problem is still improper drainage. Look how high the ballast has water standing in it. Can you see that stain? Well, that's soil filled. Now, this is very, very muddy water. It's liquid silts is what it is. Is this something scary to anybody? Gosh, I would be terribly scared. Was this preventable? It's 100% preventable. Now, it wouldn't have been without a lot of fight, and I'm not sure what to do about it. Paul, I've kind of given up. MnDOT engineers tried, but never quite know what to do. And it seems to me if I have no way to financially harm contractor for terrible permit non-compliance, contract non-compliance, what are the consequences? There aren't any, as far as I can tell. And this is a shame to me if we're here to protect our resources. Now, it's just a railroad ditch, but there sure is a railroad, and I hate to have that thing tip over and dump its load too. This is all preventable. It's just basically this is one of the best lawsuits waiting to happen. This is what it looks like right now. Well, they did put a patch kit on it. It's still eroding, so it's a little bit better, but only until the next rain event blows through that joint again.
Yeah.
And it looks to us, at least to the lead inspector, that they drove over the inlet that was there, and that pipe is cracked and it's liquefying the soil. Something is wrong because there's soil oozing right out of this. So you've got the storm drain and then a plastic pipe, and there's right where a joint might be, it's liquefied soil. That's because they drove on it and broke the pipe. At least that's what our hypothesis is. We haven't dug it out. But how frustrating it is to me. And then people wonder why I have oral conniptions. Because I really believe that we can do this. At least I thought I could, and I guess maybe that's why I need to retire, because I'm no longer effective in anything. And also in class, I'd also like to introduce to Ken Dravey. He's my direct supervisor, so between Steve and Ken, one of those two will be replacing me, and you end up with a lot better instructor. So again, if you can't stand me, oh no, he's going to make me do all sorts of compliance stuff, then call someone else that are much kinder. that use kind, politically correct words, that you look good, you care about grooming. I mean, they're just fabulous. So call somebody. There are two back there.
Hey, how much sediment does it take to derail a train?
Well, I found out on one of the projects in District 6, not very much.
That situation looked similar, didn't it?
Yes, oh, that was so much fun. That was an ethanol car, and it came off the tracks but did tip over.
Right by the
But
river.
boy, was that a fun one to read. Now, we didn't have enough money to do it right to keep the soils, but how many think we spent money to get that train back and we paid the full price? So if the railroad needs a couple $1 million, how many think we paid it?
So that's because
We couldn't spend a couple $1,000s on multi-stim, no, sorry, but we could spend millions to put the track back together and the train back on.
somebody got it.
Derailed it.
Which one? Well, I don't know if I should tell you. Well, that would actually be true. I would work from the bridge contract was fantastic. You worked with the bridge. They're big. They have the letter L in them, but I won't tell you who. 5 letters. They're not a problem. But it's the person that owns the permit that's the problem. So it ain't the bridge contract. I've not had problems with Kramer. I've not had problems with Lunda. You know, many of this, what I'll call the mid-tier, they all listen quite well. They're just afraid of me. And that's okay. You know, they need to comply.
Oh, well, you have problems with that.
Of course, but they still ultimately comply. I was talking once that when I retire, my wife said I can't stay home. And I said, well, I'd like to work for a consulting company for 1 year. To say I did it, because I've only been state, and that means I've been a mean person apparently, and have no common sense. I'd like to work for a consultant. Now I have to be a pleasant person. And you know, the statement is I would never be able to work for Ames. Because apparently I burned so many bridges. Well, I actually, you know, maybe, but not likely. Because I really believe they're in compliance with the law, not just breaking the law. But anyway, we can do better, and that's what you're here for. So if you see something like this, by the time I really got involved, it should have been the summer before, or whenever they first started, because somehow the pre-con matters. And at the pre-con, who's the authority? The prime or the owner of the project? The owner of the project. It's not the way we're not here to make them happy. They're there to make us happy, to earn the money. And if they're not earning it, then they should be really unhappy. Be maximum unhappy. So the inspection topics that I hope to get through, and I'm trying a little different styles. So every year I board with the same presentation, and every year I change it up. And this is another version of that. I'm going to look at how to, maybe not how to inspect, but what to look for as an inspector. So what review might be in the plan, and a big one is on the green sheets, I'll come to that. Inspecting for wildlife, inspecting for water access, inspecting for in over water, and all the way down. And then the last one is, that I really don't have a good answer for, but what to do when you're ignored. How many think you're going to be ignored? Yeah, it's a... And, because I think being a bridge inspector is a very noble job. One of my highlights of my career at MnDOT, there's a couple of them, but one of them was being assigned to the bridge collapse site. And so that was one first project where I was made, I signed off on the permit as the contractor. So the contractor was on the job, they were letting, close out the contractor because the bridge is not there anymore. So Terry Zoller and myself were the two permit named individuals. So it was a great fun, because it was the first time that I had no limit to spend. Whatever you needed, Dwayne, because I signed the permit, so I'm going to spend what I thought was necessary. So I had probably the most dynamic and mobile SWIP ever developed, and every day they claimed I made stuff up, but my job was to make it work. And they actually told me I didn't have any limit, just make it work. I'm not wasting money, but don't be trying to be stingy here, solve the problem. And by the way, when you have a bridge fall down, they really are thinking about people that their lives perished, so they weren't worrying so much about stormwater. That's kind of cool, so I wasn't, got her done. So I'm going to spend time here, and I'm going to have I'm not going to go through all this, but I want you to look at the green sheets. And this is really important in my opinion, because what this is encapsulating all of the environmental commitments that we might make on a project. So is it possible some projects have a simple green sheet, and some might have a lot of sheets, as I've illustrated here? This one might actually have 6 sheets, I believe, for environmental commitment delivery. It is. It's so smart. So an environmental commitment, could that be protecting bats? Lactating bats, mother bats, baby bats, and birds and eagles? Could this also be that we make a commitment to avoid damaging cultural resources? Could this also mean that you prevent fugitive dust from getting into the public space or preventing businesses from doing business? So how many different commitments could you imagine it might take to actually build a complicated bridge? But is it true that if we might need 40 or 50 permits, or at least agreements with connected people, that we should have a way of tracking that? So this is a tracking document. And it's a way for us to say to those reading. So as an inspector, I really recommend that you read this before you start work. And if you have any questions, when should you talk about this? Ken, do you have something?
Yeah, so Federal Highways is requiring us to have these on our projects to track our environmental commitments, but we're setting them up so that it's hopefully a useful tool for you. So it's a shortcut to all the environmental requirements that are somewhere in that contract. It tells you what they are, just real quick, and where to find more info on them, and who to call if you have questions.
Because the point is that if we promise to have a nice deck, should we have a nice deck? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do any planing on it. It might be a little rough sometimes, but if that project says the deck has to have your architectural features, a railing that's not too high, a railing not too low, that's sensitive to bikes, should we make sure we deliver on that? Because this is the only reason we get the permits to build. So as an inspector, you need to be aware that we might have made commitments on protection and restoration of vegetation. Kenneth, could there be vegetation we're not supposed to dork?
Very good.
Could there be trees we're not supposed to touch? But how many think the things we're supposed to protect are always in the way of the crane radius or somehow just not caring? So we give you such small footprints, we can't even build a lot of these things. There's no place to even turn around and burp. You know, they're so tight. So we have a SWIP in here, protection and restoration, but we talked about that one. I'm going to tell you that a lot of this stuff we don't even know how to do. So why do we have site management plans listed on the first sheet of the green sheet? Because we're trying to get that information from the contractor that becomes part of the plan. Is it true the designer doesn't know where stockpiles are going to go, or actually what end of the bridge are going to start on? How many think there's a lot of stuff left to contractor choice? Well, you can't really put a number on them. Contractors do, so that we're asking for the contractor. And a site management plan is basically a design build. So we're asking them, you got the work, now design it yourself to do your work. So basically, it's an amendment to the plan that we know we need, we're just not sure what it might be. So again, are there in the next sheet here, could there be things where I'm really supposed to protect some species? So how many think Canadian lynx might be pretty important? Or the 13-line skink?
It's my favorite scheme.
You know, well, they're ugly. Well, you know, it doesn't matter. We're supposed to protect them. And I'm going to say a little bit more about the lighting plans. It seems strange, but it's not. You're clearing and grubbing at the wrong time when birds are maximized, and, using that for their needs. So we still have to honor and respect the wildlife around us. We use wild or plastic-free erosion blankets. You'll see that as a commitment in here. You're going to see things that we're actually trying to protect plants, which might be fencing, it might be matting that goes down. We are going to try to tell you that there's areas of environmental sensitivity, that if you're going to do work, it might be because the ground are frozen, but we really want to avoid that impact. So we'll try to say what those things are and what sheets you might find, that if you follow it, we believe, through our regulators, that we'll be in compliance. Now, how many think there's going to be buried tanks on one of your bridge projects? Contaminated or regulated soils? Okay? I'll just get over it, it will. It'll happen. I mean, more often than not, no, because all the easy stuff where apparently they found all those tanks and they buried it into a project you haven't started yet, so they're finding them today. Not true, because they're just, I don't know, they're amazing in a number of places. And that's not so silly, because I have a project next to Wisconsin on 94 where we're supposed to put a stormwater pond in, and it turned out that someone took all the good infiltrating soil and buried concrete and road waste, or something wrong with it. It's just wrong. So how many think that now we want to do something with that property and it's all full of stuff from some other property? You know, I'm just amazed at the kinds of things we've done to ourselves, and they wonder why it's so expensive. So we do have contaminated materials. Some of them are known, and we're going to tell you, that might be, again, might be hiring someone else to do that. Noise, there's not much we can do, but we can say in this that we're not gonna work past 7 PM or before 7 AM. I mean, because someone might be living next to this project and it's gonna be quite noisy. So you might see their vibration monitoring. We have to truly deal with American with disabilities to make sure that they're not impacted any more than anyone else, that we're treating everyone as fairly as possible on these projects. So when you look at this, could there be a lot of commitments on this particular bridge? And this one is called the Twin Ports. I mean, it's a pretty big project. Yep. So that's what I wanted to illustrate there, is that then once that work is done, it'll actually tell you who needs to sign off saying it's done. So there'll be a signature box. So once it's been completed, all the trees are grubbed, then we can sign off. You don't wait till the end, you sign off as needed. Or at least make sure someone signs off as needed when that time comes. So, inspections. Now, you're not the inspector in a traditional manner, but are you still the eyes and ears for the project engineer? How many think the contractors lie and say, no, I did a great inspection out there and they didn't do anything? Whereas yet they did a great inspection, but didn't do any corrective action in the 24 hours of the next business day of discovery. How many think that I find an awful lot of projects where they didn't do what they said they were going to do?
Everyone.
And they didn't even tell me, oh, I'd like to have done it, but here's the reason. They don't even have a reason they couldn't do it. Because I understand life happens, and I don't mind, I just don't like being lied to. No, I didn't get to it, and here's why. Or maybe I didn't get to it and I didn't want to. Well, at least that's honest. So remember, that someone has to do the corrective action. So it's not just doing the inspection and finding the deficiencies. Part of quality control and quality assurance is to fix them. The permit says within a certain time frame. So should you fix rebar that's being tied before they pour the concrete or after? Well, it's like anything else. You want to follow a set of protocols that make sense. And then after a half-inch rain events, they might have one, and then a couple days later do another one, and then winter, excuse me, when meltwater occurs, you have to do it 24 hours. There's 2 days of warming generally, is what I define it as. And then if there's something wrong with the plan, they're supposed to complete that amendment within 7 days. How many think that is slipping? So if the slip sucks, and they do, it's quite common, get over it. That's just the way it is. How many think you're going to build a bridge project with a perfect plan? You're in the wrong class. There'll never be a perfect plan. It'll be a pretty good plan, and with you on the project, it'll be a great plan, but it's not going to be perfect to start. So the two things I want to emphasize here for vegetation would be avoidance and compaction. So how many think if the contract shows fencing, the fencing should go in? Is it trivial? Don't drive here, don't park here, don't stage here. How many think it's pretty important? I made the commitment to not dork that plant material, so let's not dork it. And then there may be places where we're supposed to keep vegetated green space. So we made the commitment to save that green space. Now you don't know for sure that that isn't a nesting habitat for something, but if we made the commitment, then we need to stay out of there. And so again, it's these buffers, so this is the fencing, and this is way cheaper than silt fence, but the idea that we're staying out of it. This plant, you wouldn't even know what we're protecting in it, but there really is one in there, and that's why the fencing is there. So the point is that if we make a commitment, check to see if anyone's driving over. What's the probability someone's going to be in it? And it isn't, I mean, life is going to happen. Someone's going to back into it. Just can't leave it alone. But should they tell me why it happened and prevent it from happening again? Stand up the fence? And part of this, and that's the trees on the St. Croix project. And those are trees, and you say, what? You know how much money we spent to save those trees? They're under the bridge. I'm pretty sure the trees are going to need sunshine, but there's a bridge over the top. But these were important. I have no doubt the beavers would come in and chop them all down. So we spent lots of money to keep them alive, and the beavers didn't even get a permit and start hacking on the trees. But we said we're not going to be in the wetland except for the piers. What's the contractor doing here? He's making sure that the debris from the railing removal isn't touching the what below? So he could have just hack-mastered it off in the wetland. I can dig it out. How many think that's an absolute lie, that I can dump concrete in a wetland and dig it out? I can dig something out, but have I damaged the wetland? How many think prevention is more cost-effective ultimately if our goal is to have a functional wetland? So when you're out there, does it look like it's working? Now, that doesn't mean there's a few chunks that don't fall down, but how many chunks should fall down? All of it or just a little bit of it? So take a look at it. If you're not getting satisfaction, call me. So believe it or not, we were supposed to protect those trees on this bridge that's all rusting away. But again, we need to honor those spaces that we've committed to not be in. And I think that's still one of the more elegant ways to remove stuff, was to capture it at its source, put it in a truck and haul it away, use the deck as part of your construction process, and take it off and reverse it, which is built, but use it as part of the best B&P to stage the work. Now you could bring in a crane and hack master the whole thing out, then dig out the thing and say, I wonder why the wetland's ruined. As opposed to taking it apart in pieces and minimizing anything that touches the wetland. My method of reverse engineering might be more expensive, but which one has saved the wetland? Does anyone think they know how to restore a wetland? Anyone with that level of knowledge? I don't, and I'm pretty good. It's not that simple. Too many things that are chaos involved. Okay, group, that sheet pile is where we can be. We can be inside of that. Now that's a wetland over there. How much stuff can be on the other side of the sheeting? None, you say. Well, I see it. Either that or I've photoshopped it in. So what's supposed to happen upon discovery? And then they ask me, where am I supposed to put it? Well, I don't care, but not there. When should it come out? You see, I didn't go to work to love even on this project. I didn't make any friends. But we made a commitment to not dork that wetland. So if we have to be in the wetland, it takes about a year to get through the permitting process to get access to it. So if you really need it, then go through the process. But don't give me this excuse, well, it was an accident, I'll get it out in a few months. I didn't mean to do it. Did that stuff just crawl there, or did someone place it there? By the way, the other thing that you see over there, that's called Canada. So could you have two kinds of permits? It's the same water, it's called the rainy, and could there be two sets of permits that deal with the project that has another country? How many think it's going to become the 51st state? I'm just curious how politically attuned you guys are. So people, you knew this was going in there, and I know as an owner that I should have thought about this a bit more. And truly, we're not giving enough room. So if this was really needed, people, to build a bridge, when you're reviewing plans at the beginning, should we have gotten enough more permission? Because we have to restore more wetland. Well, then we need to get that land. So review a plan, we need to get the land. But this is ridiculous. And when did I want it out? Now. It's crazy. And you also are going to find as an inspector, we're doing a lot more groovy, cool things, and they're called natural site design. You're going to see a whole slug of design trying to use local condition that might be, instead of silt fence, wood chips, topsoil berms, all sorts of things that the site already has to build a bridge, remove a bridge, rather than importing synthetics. But in this particular case, this is the Deer Creek, it's a major bridge replacement of 4-box culvert, and these are riffles. So that brown, that's Namaji, it's always that color, it looks bad, but it's always that color. But part of this was putting bends into the creek, using logs and footers, and yes, hand-placed riprap. That's not just dozers pushed around. It's in a very specific place with a little thumb, and they twist it. And the DNR is out there, and they determine by a level, you know, are these at the right place? And the contractor twists a little bit, and finally the DNR, yeah, I like it. So you're going to see a lot more of this. So it's not just the bridge, it's the water under the bridge. And then that entire riprap face was compost filled, so it's vegetated riprap. So from a wildlife perspective, is this much more sensitive to water? There's still a bench down here, by the way. There's still a wildlife bench to where it needs to be, but everything else is vegetated. Would you believe it's a very different look? Now, y'all might like riprap. I don't mind riprap, but I prefer it to be vegetated, if given a choice. Now, I'm not talking about perfect vegetation, but I'm talking about pretty interesting ecological areas. Wildlife could still use the voids between the rock. So you're going to be part of that system to be overseeing hand-placed riprap with the thumb at very strategic places, that's hand-placed, and then wraps, root rods, headers, footers, and this is just a geotextile for temporary protection until they get everything stabilized. So we use a lot of geotextile covers here. We gave them basically, the contractor, a 10-foot wide road, and they actually brought down a piece of equipment. The tracks stay in these, and the thing turns around, and they go back up. So they didn't have to back up and get back up. They just went to the needed, dumped the rock, and turned around. The thing turned around, the track stayed there. So cute little things. It's amazing what exists if they're pushed hard enough. Contractors are very creative. So I define what the limits are. In terms of vegetation and our commitment, this seems strange, but how many know we gotta grow plants? Now growing concrete is easy. Gosh, that's so easy. Even in the winter it's easy. You just add a lot of energy to it. Add some water to this Portland cement, some other stuff, accelerants, retarders, and next thing you know it's concrete. In 30 days you can say, yep, that looks like concrete. How long does it take to grow a plant? What's the length? Forever. Whole lifetimes. Yeah. Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 years. We're getting better at our mixes are going to be quite different. They should give you the greener chia pet. This is in the tribal area of the Grand Portage. And right now, this meets the permit requirements. This is a little weak, but this perimeter control can all come out. I don't have any vegetation here yet. But this is, again, hand-placed rock, and this is for fish. So this is the Grand Portage tribe. It's actually one of their named creeks after the tribe. But nonetheless, vegetation is very important. But I want to share with you, this is, you guys know I'm nuts. But I asked in the contract, that the contractor save the tree material. And they did. And they put the tree debris field back in. What's the fastest way to grow a forest? Believe it or not, mimic a forest floor. You're right. Now I could put a bunch of bare root stuff in there that won't be faster than starting with a tree debris field. You know where life begins in a forest? Where the life of others water. So if a tree falls down, the new trees will be next to it. They're living on their parents.
Something's going to grow unless it's a dead tree.
Next to it. Yep, that's right. That's why life needs life, or was life. So this is actually interesting. That's actually intended to be a forest. So I'm going to predict that I have no trees in here, and I'm going to have trees bigger than the ones they planted. And it's just what comes from the seed rate of the trees that are adjacent to it. So then another piece here, inspections review examples for wildlife. How many think nesting birds have rights? How many think life is fair? Get over it, it ain't. No, it ain't. Migrating birds, turtles, bats, fishes, and you may hate all of them. That's fine, we live in America. But how many think you've got to honor the rights of the animals, whether you like them or not? So whatever we're next to, we need to make sure that we're preserving that stuff. So bats, birds, migratory. So if you see a bunch of birds swirling around your bridge, or you have this much erosion, they start swirling around under the area, or you've got these embankments of surcharges, and there's all these little holes in it, and birds are flying all over the place. Or worse yet, there are birds that you can actually see. Should you be concerned? You just go and knock them down, swoosh the eggs, and I didn't see nothing. Now that's actually a felony, so don't do that. You call your engineer, they'll call someone in central office, we'll work with you. But it doesn't mean you're going to get instantaneous access tomorrow. Now you're allowed to harass birds, you're to prevent them from nesting, but once they do their birdie things, you're done. It's just the way it is. It ain't fair. So watch. So this should have been fixed immediately. This shouldn't be a place for homeless to live and birds to live and animals to live. No snakes should be in there either. You'll get it fixed. This is a bad thing, by the way. We're not. But these are what you're looking for is holes in these things, and certainly you can guess that that's a nest. We need to protect our commitments. This is not hard, but it takes time. There's a potential on that St. Croix Bridge, surrounded by forest, there might be birds and wildlife. Say, that's pretty cool. How many think wildlife is bored? I think they're just like children. I got nothing to do. So let's go explore, do some weird stuff in there. And the weird for them is, I don't know, playing in some girders. Making more birds. I don't know what birds do. But next thing you know, you've got birds flying in there and doing birdie things. So when we start a bridge project and the contract requires bird netting, when should the bird netting go in? After they've nested or before? And does someone need to inspect to make sure it's actually working? And then after a flood that it tears out, you should go get this stuff, but now what do I have to put it back in again? Well, I've got to get the contractor to do it. So we create habitat for certain kinds of wildlife, just on what we do. So what you're looking for is a congregation of birds flying around. When you start seeing birds just, I mean, either there's a dead coyote in the road there, the eagles and something just circle around to come down, or maybe it's a dead Dwayne or something, I don't know, bloatware. You know, that there's something going on there. So, and then there are other examples where you might see that we're both providing erosion prevention and a way for the birds not to use it. So is it possible that BMPs could have more than one use, depending on the time of the year? So this is one of the major, so over here was not suitable habitat, but we created suitable habitat, so it's not only erosion prevention, but it's trying to make sure birds don't use our space until we need to get back into that bridge span again. Next one is really weird. And this one of my favorite ecologists, wildlife, Chris Smith, great person. He's very concerned about light pollution. So is it possible we could build a downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul and have birds fly to their death during certain times of the year migration? It's happening all the time. You know, they don't know where the moon, they're not following what they're supposed to, and they just go in circles, and next thing you know, they've died. We know because they're at the base of the buildings. So is it possible we should be lighting what needs to be worked on and not the sky? It's not trivial. I've written in multiple contracts that the lighting needs to point downward. Is that what you see here? Again, it's not love. I'm not talking about the light that may be over there, but for the most part, keep the light where it's needed and nothing shines to the sky. And this became a really interesting point when I was working on the Hastings Bridge project. They added lights at the same time the mayflies hatched, and the deck had more than 2 feet of dead mayflies on the deck, and they had to call in MnDOT maintenance and the plows to plow off the thick mayflies. Other than that, we're smearing cars. It was so bloody. I mean, mayflies got this red juice. It was just a disaster. And at that point, they recognized maybe the light shouldn't be on anymore. It's amazing. You know, that usually takes an expensive lesson. Now, apparently, construction doesn't really think about mayfly plowing. Like, who knew?
New pay item.
I only got the bloody deck. I didn't get there. See, no one gets pictures for me, so all I got is the after effect. I didn't see, at the same project, you know, some car hit a deer, and I knew there's blood all over the deck. What's going on here? Well, one of the contractor employees took the deer, drug it out, and then skinned it out under the underside of the bridge, thinking I'd never look there for carcass entrails. But there's blood all over the ditch, and my inlets were wide open with blood. What did you guys do here? A lot of creative contractors, you know. I didn't want blood on my deck to discharge illegally to the river below. Because I don't have a permit to discharge blood. So that's why I like you guys. You know, it's so much fun. There's so many weird things that happen every day. So again, we're going to be grinding up the trees at certain times of the year and then using that as mulch. This is that part of that natural site design. These are typically what withstand floods. Just amazing, cost-effective things that we can do because we have to do it anyway for nesting bird protection, and let's have fun with this. And then turtles. The reason that we shouldn't be using silk curtain is that this actually is an impediment for fish and other wildlife, for doing wildlife things. I even had a project with Minimal Construction, and there's a bunch of mother, in this case it was wood ducks, and her babies couldn't get over the silk curtain, so the contractor, bless his heart, built the baby wood duck ramp. So the birds could follow the mama duck over the floating curtain. So now as a class exercise, tell me if you think the silk curtain is installed properly for the work actively taking place. Answer here is no, and absolutely no. What's wrong? Okay, too far out. The plan shows 6 feet. Does that look like it's out more than 6 feet? Now behind me is Perch Lake. This is a real name thing. I'm on a big box culvert. And what you see in the picture is called the St. Louis River. Let's make sure we get it really figured out. That we've got tribal land, tribal water, and U.S. waters.
Where's the water flowing?
It's flowing from bottom out.
If you got river water, you shouldn't have it connected at both ends then.
Right. So today, how many think the silk curtain should have been around the work zone abutment bridge ends? It's a trail. How many think that shouldn't be in the river as you see it? It should have been reconfigured on the sides of the work. And how many think the excavator bucket could have moved it at need? And then originally this water would hit a solid piece of land, we're building a bridge, and it would go to the left. So you'd never want to dam a culvert. You never want to dam a river. It doesn't work. Anyone thought about how to dam Mississippi River with some silk curtain? I mean, that's a definition of insanity. So you're right. When should the curtain have been moved? So that should have been reconfigured, and it's redundant. And it should, so I talked about it with the guys out in the field. The point is that once it gets into the flow of the water, the sediment is lost. We're not gonna stop the flow, it's trying to minimize the flow getting out into the St. Louis River. And you'd never believe it, but Lake Superior does have a tide. So I've been out here where the water went into Perch Lake because that's the river, the lake went high, the tidal, and it actually backs up the St. Louis River a little bit. Enough that the water, you can actually see it going the other way. But it should have been tight. And if, once that rock is in, and the geotextile, that's what we're trying to do is put the geotextile down, it don't look at all like the plan. Not even close. How many think when we get that little geotextile to fold under the rock as we saw Carl show us? Did it look like that? No. But how many think one of the better BMPs is to start with clean rock? It could be worse. So the dirt's coming out because it's a very silty soil, they're digging it out to get the depth they needed for the rock. So it wasn't the rock problem, but again, this curtain, this wasn't even needed here. It should have been tight to here and tight to here, but not damming the river. So this curtain should have gone back that way to protect that water. This one is correct, go back this way, but it's the area of work. So that's what I'm trying to make it. So if you're looking at this and the curtain doesn't look like it's doing what it's supposed to, it's probably not configured right. Now the next question is, when should it be removed? So the picture on the left was what they put in. How many think none of this crappy stuff should be in the ice today? Huh? How many think ice can damage this and now I can have styrofoam beads flowing all over planet Earth? Or the precursors of new microplastics? It's bad for us, bad. Why is it still in the ice?
Nobody told them to take it out.
Right. So that's this project. So they managed to get the other stuff off, and they didn't get that stuff out. Huh. You know how hard it is to get out now? The only saving factor is that this doesn't have the main St. Louis River flow anymore. It'll probably be fine, but so here's what the permit says. Silt curtain is a short-term work. And once that short-term activity is done, if the banana is supposed to be removed, and sediment control is installed on land as needed. So when should that banana have been removed? Basically, it should have been once they got that bridge set in place. The riprap is all beautiful, blanket's all beautiful. That should have been gone. In fact, all of it should have been gone, and none of it should have been present. And this kind of embarrasses me because I'm supposed to be, pretty knowledgeable on this stuff, and I feel frustrated that I'm still stupid, powerless. So if we make a commitment that nothing touches the water, or nothing touches the water below, might that be a bridge under a bridge to capture the bridge being removed? What does it cost to build a bridge under a bridge? Is that free? We're not supposed to touch the water, so do you think we still touch the water? I mean, I was there and it's fun that chiseling off the deck, that a piece would fall down and go right through the plywood. They didn't even say 4. 4! But because I'm the only one down here, so I'm one of those disposables. But nonetheless, we need to protect the commitments we made. Now, we don't know what the contractor is going to do we? So they give us a plan, review the plan. What's the fastest way to learn something, people? Ask someone who knows. Or if you're a married man, then ask your wife. But other than that, ask someone who knows. That's a joke. I think it's true. So we put details like this in plans. Do you think that the owner of the work should know how to do the work in conformance to the law? It's either yes or no. And I'm sick and tired of this, that the contractor have figured out. And let's say you're a relatively new bridge inspector. Do you think you'll know what to do? You think it's possible to know every different conversion to build something, remove something? No. But together, do you think we can know a lot more? That's why you're my eyes and ears.
OJT.
Yeah, well, sort of. You'll teach me things, I'll teach maybe you something. But so we put a means and methods in the contract. The contractor can chew on this and, yeah, I see what you're asking. I'm going to pump around when I take out the box culvert to put a span in. Is that reasonable? That's one method. Now, could the contractor come up with other means and methods that would be as good or better? We're open to it. All of my stuff in the SWIP is amendable, except the location of the permanent ponds. The details are amendable, the locations are amendable, it just has to be as good or better. So could it be cheaper and be way better? Yeah, we love that. So let's go through a few things before I'm completely out of time. I want to review 1501. And that's the authority. Maybe you've already read this, but I'm gonna read it to you again anyway. So turn to the orangish book. You don't know I'll have orangies? Looks like. I don't know, I'll read it to you, then you don't have the oranges. This is the Bible. You mean you people aren't carrying this with you? Well, you must all have it on your iPads then. You don't have that either? It must be all on your smartphones, because you wouldn't dare go anywhere without MnDOT smartphone app for that, right? Authority of the engineer. And so here's what it says. The engineer will, in the engineer's sole discretion, make final inclusive decisions with interpretation of the contract. So if the contractor isn't doing something, does the engineer get to say that's not right? Yes or no? That's how it's supposed to be. Can the engineer suspend the work because they're just doing sucky work? Well, that's what it says. Because I want you to, if you have a highlighter, I'd have you highlight 1501.24. Comply with the requirements of how many permits? Oh, I heard. Oh, how many could that be if there's 100? 100! Wow! So whose job is it to make the engineer happy? I would think it'd be the contractor. It ain't my job. I don't make him happy at all. And can the contract or the engineer suspend work just because it's the wrong time, not working, too weird? Are there times when the engineer can say, no, tornado's coming. We probably shouldn't work in a tornado. And if you ever read MnDOT spec, you know we have typhoons in Minnesota. If you read the Act of God spec, it's in there. I didn't know I had them. And so part of your job is 1501.3, the basis of the decision. Because the engineer's judgment is actually based on some of the information you provide them. So facts. So how many think it's important that you document and write stuff down? Photograph if you can. Because how many think showing continuous negligent behavior is something we can use in a court of law? Documented, long-term, negligent behavior. But you see, I can't, oh, you just made that up. I've been doing a great job doing it. You just showed up today and it's not. So, point 5 for me, 1501.35, regulations. And it says established by the department, and I do an awful lot of those guidance documents to provide what I call a reference information document or inlet protection. I didn't bring them today, but there's a lot of guidance out there. So I know that there isn't easy ways to interpret the permit or easy ways to deliver on the permit, but is it still true the owner should know how to do it? Okay, let's go look at your role, 1510. And then it says, of course, where did 1510 go? Oh, authorities and duties of the inspector. The inspectors have the authority to do the following: write change orders, direct the contractor to do work. Is that what it says? You got none of that. You're just the eyes. You document as you see, but is it your job to direct the work of the contractor? Is it your job to call seating contractors or to schedule the work? That is not your job. Make them do their job. And Ken and I are still having problems with something called the erosion control supervisor 2573. They have a job duty list. There's 14 of them, and how many think they're not doing their job? They're not doing their job. No, I think you're right. None of them. It's pretty close to that number. It might be 0.1%, because there's probably 1 out of a million that's doing the right thing. But it's a pretty low number. So all you're really doing is to notify the contractor of non-conforming work, but not direct the work. So if they're doing something and pushing mud in the river, immediately tell them you can't do it that way. Then make the call to the engineer. You got to do something. I mean, if it's a life and limb, you're probably going to respond immediately, but you're not rarely going to find out that they're doing something like backing the truck. Although I keep finding that happening. Just crazy things for traffic, because the only job that's important is mine, not the driving public. So I want to make sure that you are very important to me. But the point here is you don't have the authorization to alter or waive requirements in the contract, but you certainly are the eyes and ears for the project engineer. You play a very important role in this. 1717, I want to read a few things out of this for you. And this is for me the most important part of my spec, one that I live and die by. And this is, for those that have the orange book, I'm on page 72. I even have mine dog-eared because I had to bend this one into so many times here. But the quality control paragraph, so 1717.28, the contractor shall submit one. When should you get a quality control program as a bridge inspector? Pre-con! After that, the love is all gone. They're gonna be so full of love on that day of the pre-con, they're so excited to start work this spring. Woohoo, I got all this money, you gave the project to me, yay! I bid it too low, but I'm gonna find a way to screw you everywhere I go so I can finally get the money I really want. Yay! You gotta get to work. But they're supposed to name an individual to do the quality control. It's not your job, but it's your job to ensure you get one, a plan. And if you don't get a plan, should the engineer allow the work to proceed? No. How many think a quality control is a brain? It's a written statement, but it's not, well, I'm gonna put some silt fence in. That's not quality control. A quality control is that you follow the MnDOT spec and you installed it like it's supposed to be. Quality control is to verify that the silt curtain is 6 feet away from the shore as shown in a plan. And if they need more, then move it. But nonetheless, it's following the quality control program. So part of that, there's a bunch of things that they're supposed to deliver to you. So I really recommend that you focus on the quality control program that the contractor develops for the engineer's acceptance. And it needs to be reviewed. You know who will review it for you? Dwayne will review it. Because how many think the contractors submit the least number of words humanly possible? My quality control program consists of the following: the. Then we'll banter for a minute, then I'll have another word. Because we keep adding words, it takes us forever to get something written because they don't want to commit to anything. That's the problem, is that's why we have to do a lot of bantering back and forth to finally get them to submit a weekly erosion schedule, the site management plan, the fact that they're going to walk around and look at their own project, which is really what quality control and the permits are asking us to do. And the one I'm really interested in is, of course, that ensure that temporary erosion controls are kept functional. So if we have to use geotextile or plastic, should it actually be doing what it's supposed to? It'll be up like on the soil. And for bridge people, you're going to see an awful lot of plastic and geotextile slope covers. Could be the same geotextile, type 7 we heard from Carl, that should be slope dressing with rock eventually, but could type 7 be used temporarily? Correct. So it's already in the plan, you're not going to pay for it. You might pay for it as part of the project, but I'm not going to pay for more. And then the next one, I don't even have a book here for right here. It's just to show you, I'm not going to read this to you, but in 2573 A1 is another one that you should be quite familiar with as an inspector. And this is, for me, it's one of the most important specs besides quality control, because this is the person that implements the quality control. So I have one, and then someone's got to actually do it. Isn't that weird? Someone's actually got to do it. And on page, for those that have the book, 750, well, how often do they have to be available? You already know this with the training. They should be there daily. How often do they have to comply with laws? Well, it says ensures daily compliance, so at least once a day. And I'd be pretty good if it was at least once a day in compliance with all the laws, regulations, orders, and decrees. Wouldn't that be cool, at least once a day? How many of you are going to speed on your way home? Speed limit plus 20. Well, see, I didn't break the law. See, the law's for those people, but not me. So it's daily compliance. And the number one job duty of an erosion control supervisor is what? And of course, it has a number 1 by it. What's the number 1 job duty? Implement. But don't they actually have a program to implement? See, if they didn't submit one, what do they have to implement? Nothing. So does that include quality control on concrete, slurries, cuts, diamond grinding, drainage from bridge decks until the inlets are in place, keeping the deck clean? So how many different quality control items could there be for a bridge that has been removed and built? Could that quality control program evolve as the work evolves? What do you want each week? Basically, what went well and what in the corrective actions for this coming week. That's an erosion control look-at schedule. How many think they're going to get it right the first time? No, none of us do. That's part of being human. So those are pretty important to me. So if we're not supposed to suck fish in pumping around, what should we not be sucking? Yeah, we should be sucking fish. So to make sure that the slots don't, see, I actually was served papers by the DNR Conservation of, pretty powerful. Because one of my projects, they didn't know who to call, so I got papers served to me. It's really scary when you got a person with a gun and walkie-talkies and a beautiful hat. It's scary as all get out. But apparently a baby northern got sucked into one of the holes on the fish screen. And they said I took a fish out of season. Well, yeah, officer, I guess I did. And so I then directed the contractor to put a smaller screen on it. Well, it's for real. And be aware that the new law requires that we monitor the amount of water that gets pumped around and pushed around. So look for the pump, monitors. So this is again sheet pile, beautiful BMP, and they're dewatering this area under the bridge at 694. So it's not that hard. We
Wait.
already talked about this.
Let's take a little break here.
All right, no. This is that fish passage again. The rock was cleaned, that's still the best BMP, so the quality control start with clean rock, place clean rock, makes a big difference. And that bench, what Paul didn't tell you, is to make sure that this bench touches to the land. It makes no sense to stop the critter bench and have no way for the wildlife to continue. So what's the banana doing out here? Any idea?
Aesthetics.
You're about as good as right. I have no idea. What's it out there? I don't know. Maybe they get caught in a tree and float away. But are we allowed to have a banana in the water when it's no longer needed for water quality controls? No. Now I'm told I have to give you a break. Okay.
Yeah, let's take a 7-minute break till 22.
You guys have to amp up your voice to, get that level.
Because we're running out of them. How many think Mille Lacs has got a problem?
No, it's coming back. They increased the limits.
Maybe, but part of it is the water is so clear that walleyes are, because we used to have so many zebra mussels that the population adapted, and now, or we did have zebra mussels, now we do, that the water's gotten so clear that it might be affecting the walleye harvest.
Yeah, but they're starting to even now.
So, hopefully,
No,
but
they are.
the point is, so we are designing, this is for wildlife, a passage. So here's the main flow, and this would be the climate resilient flow, but yet during the non-flooding, it allows wildlife to go under the road and not get killed. Does that add cost? But what's the price of a life? Because that's what these things are, and this is just a temporary bypass. So main flow, wildlife flow, and flood relief flow on this. So you may not be building culverts, but there's tools just to deal with wildlife. And another really funny thing that I cry about sometimes, I know Peter Lee's taking pictures, would you believe we're now putting dirt into culverts? Rock and dirt. So here I spent my whole project trying to keep the dirt from getting there, then I'm told to put dirt in it. But at least it's dirt in a short period of time, it's all at once. But anyway, it just kind of gross that I had to put rock and dirt because they want the bottom to look natural to a fish. But it just goes against everything. So here's an example where, just so you know, that it's not easy to put rock into culverts. So the contractor had to order special sections, knew this, and they would put the soil and dirt in before they sent the section in, because there's no easy way to drive in or to convey it in, so they put a mound of the stuff in, and then they went in and spread it around to start that way. So they needed something stronger box segments so they could lift it up with the rock already in it. Just engineering, kind of funny. And then the last part on this thing is to make sure that it was in a river, to make sure that the aquatic invasive species are removed. So it's almost always power washing. And I really recommend that it's power washed. In this case, it's hot temperature, more than 140 degrees, 10-second contact time per square foot, and no matter the size of the barge, and I didn't even know this, but and this is part of the mouth from the St. Croix River to the Mississippi River, that they actually have things that are bringing monster barges on land. So not only can they be fixed, but they can be decontaminated. So before any barge could go up to the St. Croix River, they had to be decontaminated. So it's really fascinating. Again, what people know, but pretend they don't know. So I just keep pushing. It's amazing that most of the answers there. I invent very little new, but I sure copy a lot of old, existing knowledge. Although I have done some really novel things, I guess. So inspection, the review of stormwater controls on land, and these are the few I'm going to look at. How many think as a class, does this look good to you?
No.
For me, I'd shut the contractor down. This is so scary. This is open to the public on your way to Duluth. Should this look like this? When should you start complaining? If you can't get a hold of the engineer, should you say, keep going, but right now, everything is free. You can't pay for nothing that's related to this thing. So how much dirt should be on a road that's opened by the public? You know what speed they're doing here?
70.
Even if it's posted at 55, what are the people doing going to Duluth?
54 and a half.
Yeah, 55, really? God, they're doing awfully speedy for 55. But what do you think they should be doing here? Well, the stockpile is a mess. There's no perimeter control. It's not stabilized. And if they don't use a geotextile according to MnDOT standard detail, how long will putting rock on mud last? One truck. Now have rock stuck to tires and mud on the road. So they need to follow something. So it's a construction entrance and exit, we don't care. But how many think it could be drivable mats? I've lost patience with rock. Particularly if you're not going to use a geotextile and enforce the geotextile. It's a separation fabric. Could it be type 3? If you don't got type 3 in a plan, could you use type 7? But you do have in a plan. Whatever you got. I don't pay for it, but it should be there. I don't care what kind it is, just get it on. So stabilization is missing, perimeter control is missing, nobody cares is missing, that's completely there. This idea that job one is safety, and this should never be allowed to happen. Of course, I had another oral conniption, but it's just hard to be nice. Inlets. How many inlets might a bridge project have?
7.
How many different styles of inlets might a bridge have? Actually, quite a few different things. And would you agree that that plywooded thing is ready for concrete placing? I actually like that as an inlet protection. But it's inlet protection, it just doesn't look like conventional, that's the whole point on a bridge. Because there is an inlet here. It's one of those troughs that are slanted and there are holes right here. It looks like one of these when you're done. And so sometimes inlet protection isn't what you want, it's slurry management. So could it be something in the gutter line as opposed to an inlet? But the permit says all storm drain inlets. But can the plan be amended to talk about other things that are likely more effective and safe to the public? But how many inlets need to be addressed? And my favorite inlet is one offline. Okay, how about a joint? Are they an inlet? They are. Because I'm supposed to keep this stuff on the deck, and how many think the deck is really clean looking? So the contractor got mad at me and said, all right, I'll take care of it. And they foamed it, great. Now I got foam when they cleared it out, so now that's in the river, but at least the concrete isn't. And I just want to show you this as an example. This isn't an inlet, but it's a gap like that. And the contractor here, moving concrete to the shaft, actually put a drapery across the two different barges to minimize anything touching the water as they're moving concrete, swinging concrete around to get it into that drill shaft. And then the best BMP is, believe it or not, diversion around the project. How much water should you want in from upgrading areas on your bridge? None. You really shouldn't. These are just examples. They're all bridge projects, just don't look like the bridge, but there's a bridge there. And how many think we need to apply that when you don't have the approach panel in? Where does the deck water go? Where's it gonna go when it's done? But it can't get there. So where did the water go instead? It literally went around the corner and filled 35W. This is not County 96, or maybe it's County, it's 96, whatever it is. And instead, we couldn't afford it just because we wouldn't let the water. Now, how many think the silt fence is a little high, even if I'm gonna put a sump around it? So did I save any sediment by having that goopy inlet protection in? So instead, what could be done differently?
You could have diverted the water somewhere else. Well, no, you could have a conveyance pipe that runs from, catches all that water and takes it down below and clean.
Biolog would be better because it's less height, but yours is the right answer. So basically, you take the clean water off the deck and dump it in the hole. So could that be some wood here and a plywood flume? Could it be a plastic flume? But the water isn't getting here. Let's get the water there. So the contractor always seems, at least to me, and maybe it's just me, well, what do you want me to do, man? And then the one I show you there, which is really clever by the company, and what they did is that they actually built a bituminous flume here to carry the water where it could handle rather than directly over the box culvert. And I'm asking, are there places that we could use recycled bituminous millings and create flumes? Wouldn't be here, but are there places that we could actually create stabilized water conveyances? It's a waste material, but we already have it. So part of that is pipe routing. So pipes to extend it to where I can handle it, moving water from scuppers to where I can't, where I can handle it, might be a different location, different inlet. And these are all examples of bridge projects, obviously, where we've taken water where it can't go because we can't manage it to areas where it can go because we can manage it. So how many think scupper extensions, gutter extensions could be a way of the future? Well, of course they have to be. And like anything else, you know, scupper extensions allows it to do the work, and this is pretty clever. This is the Smith High Bridge. These are the downspouts, and they'd rather than go through all this dirt, they put it on one of those Tremie tubes and extended the water to the inlet, which is sitting over here. It went dumped into the hole, so the deck is clean and it goes right away, as opposed to taking clean water and making it dirty by hitting veg. But in all cases, it's trying to take water from a high point to a low point in a pipe rather than letting it eat the dirt. We even have details for this that nobody pays attention to, but they do exist. Your down drains, they really exist. No one pays attention to them and wonder why that slope fails. We need to start thinking about conveying water from a high point of a bridge to a low point. I'm finally getting contractors to believe that using plastic or geotextile flumes is a cost savings to the investment you made. By the way, how far is this rock supposed to be out here?
2 feet.
Really? You said 2 feet? Huh. Oh, you're right. That is the right answer. But anyway, not letting the water come into the bridge project, and that's having the inlets that are wide open but forcing the water in a hole. And this is the one that I got to mess with Paul on. This is that expansion joint, and it wasn't in there yet, so the contract sheet built a trough under it and carried all that water. We're destroying that slope. But they weren't at a point where they could put any slope dressing because all the false work was in place. So they literally captured that water and put it on down pipes. How many think that's cost effective? And by the way, there's a wetland immediately to the right of this picture that kept getting inundated by that water. How many think that's pretty effective? What did it cost us? Nothing is for free. Even if I didn't pay for it directly, nothing is free. And all I want to point out in this case is that we're supposed to have effective perimeter control, and if the perimeter control is underwater, is it really perimeter control? No, that's not it. And you know, making sure that this is actually high enough to do the job is necessary. This is pretty close to what I want, big stockpile, and it's looking at more of the Jersey barrier. I like this one just because it's a piece of plywood that they made, and that's to do with some of the concrete rubble that really didn't want to go in the gutter line below. So I thought that's pretty clever of them. But nonetheless, the perimeter control needs to be big enough to do its work, and for me, that means serious enough to actually accomplish the task. How many think silk fence let's make a biolog. A 6-inch biolog underwater would have been great stockpile perimeter here. Now, we gotta get serious. So if they're doing something stupid, speak up and tell them, no, I'm not paying for that, that's not appropriate for the area. Again, sheet pile, Jersey barriers that are wrapped are very, very powerful. Slopes themselves, the best BMP for slopes is covers. You're not ready to go to permanent stabilization. Can you imagine what this would have looked like? This is the 24 bridge over the Mississippi River. If this was wide open, what would this ditch look like? It's already bad. Would it have been much worse? So this needed geotextile. They tried little inch rock, and that wasn't big enough. But how many think a piece of geotextile repair kit was the way to go? Make a flume, slip and slide for the water. So in all cases, stabilize areas that you can't go to permanent on. What's the maximum time frame if these are all impaired waters or special? 7. But remember, people, the contract or the permit says you have up to 7 days to get that done. Should you wait 7 days or do it on the first day you don't anticipate? The contractor says, I'm not going to be back on the slope. Actually, the permit says immediately and no later than the end of the next business day of the work. That's like you got 24 hours. And be completed within 7 days, but you don't get 7 days. That's what a contractor fallacy. So is it possible that we can use practices, lift them up, do some work, and put them back down again? How many think even erosion blanket can be moved multiple times before it's kind of worn out? So we don't care what it is. You don't want to be paying for it multiple times, and that's why I recommend poly or geotextile. But we do need to get stabilization and keep it going. On this particular one, when you've got a surcharge there, what's number 1 doing? What's the banana doing? Is it for sediment control or juice from the hammers? It's actually an oil boom in this case. How many think the riprap is the bank stabilization? It's all we need. How many think at least has one face that's kind of cracked on it? But would you believe that there are times where the watersheds and other want natural stone? Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, they want natural stone, none of that, ground up, crushed rock. 3 is the real BMP for the work, and how many know 4 is the plastic daily cover on their sand surcharge? So they moved out of the way to do some work. What has to happen at the end of the day? Who has to cover it? Who's the only one that's gonna remember that it needs to be covered? Let's say in this picture, there are 3 people here. Who's the only one that's gonna remember? This guy. No one else. No, it's Miller time, man. I gotta get out of here. So this is what I'm looking for. Remember, perimeter control only needs to be down gradient, and yet they put it around the craziest thing that's not where it's needed. And the cover itself needs to be functional. Is there anything wrong with that arrow up there, that blue arrow? Yeah, it's open. I mean, it's blue open. And in most cases, perimeter control is supposed to be on down gradients. And they're actually, this is a water that you don't normally riprap or add mulch to riprap it. I'm just saying that you need redundancy, and that's not it. And then as a class now, what's wrong here? It looks like a bridge to me. Any dirt get into a gutter? It's called the surface water. Any exposed soils? Huh. No perimeter control on stockpiles, no perimeter control on the edges, and that does drain to a wetland. This is the Southwest Light Rail project. That's why the bridge is a little narrow, because it's for trains. But when should that be stabilized?
As soon as those guys are done grading it.
Where are they?
Looks like they've been gone a while.
They've been gone a while. And it rained. I haven't seen anyone here. No iron is here. No bodies are here. Why is it exposed? That's why it ain't about love, people. That's the library. How about this one?
Really?
You see, it's illegal to put something in the gutter line. They obviously did it, doesn't mean it's legal. Is there any dirt on the pavement? How long can dirt remain on the pavement? No more than 1 day, but we're actually supposed to have a bypass, and this is regulated soil besides, so it's not just nice water going down. That's a stormwater basin, and they didn't put any media in it, so Ken, that's just a liner. But they didn't dare because they didn't have adequate stabilization to go to the finished media. And probably a good thing because they happen to have regulated or contaminated soil that drained right into it. That they're shaving off and they haven't hauled it out yet. So I want to know, now how many think it's not looking like a nice sunny day in this picture? How many think it probably rained? How many think that's a nice sunny day? It probably rained. I mean, I can even see standing water there. So how many think it's possible in a bridge project? This is Chaska, County 41. It's now something else that we had a good looking down rain and it rained a lot. I mean, life happens.
River come up.
River did come up, it's in the flood stage, BOP's underwater, but how many think this is a reportable discharge? So you call the engineers and, no, I'm not turning ourselves in, because you already talked to the contractor. I ain't doing it. Everyone says, I'm not doing it. What should you do? Call the state duty officer. Don't want to do that, call Dwayne, I'll turn you in. But I still think I have the largest number of turn-ins. Not been about love. They can't fire me at MnDOT for following the law. I'm sure they've tried, but they can't. The law says either the owner or the prime needs to self-report when you have an illicit discharge. That's illicit. That ain't supposed to be there. But it happened. It's not the end of the world. Fix it. How much priority should be put on that area of failure? It's a bridge end. Now stop the other crap. Go to the area that's got a concern. Now, could there be an issue I have to get more permits? Because I have to trespass. Could it be that it's too wet, punky, and I do more damage to get my mud out than leaving it until the flood goes down or dries out a little bit? But does it need to be documented? Who needs to document it? You say it's not my job. Please document it anyway. Please take pictures of it anyway. Because if we go to stipulation or a settlement out of court, could your files make a difference between MnDOT burning or just the prime burning? I told the contractor, they blew me off. Told the contractor next day, they blew me off. Document that. These are not becoming kind environments anymore. And The best BMP was pre-washed rock. This is not easy, but the best BMP, now does the banana look like it's out too far? And I don't mind if they, there's nobody here anymore. They're putting in the grade field. That should have been brought tight into that rock. And it could be just a few feet away from the rock. But you can see that they're holding it out way further than it needs to be. So when should that get pulled in? And when they're done with the grading operation, where does sediment control begin? Is it this thing, or is it something supposed to be on land? So now when you have to go measure something, it needs to be on land. Could that be a log? Could it be a silt fence? It needs to be something, but it's on land, it's not in there. So the next part is inspection review examples of water access. And how do I know if this is working? Well, this is, they're building this bridge, and they had to build this Lake Waukegan, 169, and they built a bypass around so they could build the bridge. Is the banana overall working? There's a blowout here, so should we investigate why? And that should be corrected. So, those causeways are a pretty big deal. Do the areas that they built need to be stabilized as they go? Yep, that's what you're looking for. Is it growing plants? Is it clean rock? Is it working as intended? And if this has got dirt in it, is there something wrong? I showed you that slope already that was geotextile, and that's that dirt deposit down there. And would you believe that we had to provide canoe and kayaker portages across the causeway? And they refused to use it. They instead shot the rapids where the water was constricted and said, that's way more fun. And if you're not familiar with, I've given up on the still water. If you're in a flowing water, which kind of silk curtain should be in the contract? The one that I showed you there, that's the one with the interlock. Which one do you think is more expensive? The one held by little ropes and grommets? Or the one held by interlock? Interlock. I want the interlock. But if you want one that works, it's the gap that's killing you. So they tie them together and they come apart a foot. So we really should be using nothing but the moving water. So while it might cost more, does it provide a better outcome? So and if I had my way, Ken, there'd never be another still water curtain in Minnesota ever again. I just eliminated it, so even in the still water areas, you still use the moving water one.
Let's change the spec, Dwayne.
I hate that one. So I think I'm going to get this into one of these contracts someday, but this is called Portadam. I almost got it into the Albert Lee, but I'm pretty sure they're going to take it away from me, but gosh, I'm getting close. But the point is, it's a way that, again, isolates the work zone from the flow zone. You're not relying on the banana, you're relying on something serious that has a chance to work. But Jersey barriers wrapped in plastic are serious, they really work. Building bridges over water, timber mats over soft water soil, and even barges have been very good bridges, if you will, to get access to the work. Now, can anyone tell me what's wrong in this picture? What do you mean, yikes? Huh? I don't even have a banana out here. Would a banana make any difference?
Maybe. Some.
Well, I made the contractor, well, it was actually MnDOT that called itself in, but what's the probability that this was down the river a couple of miles before I can, I look at it, now I gotta go run to the engineer. Takes me a while just to do all that stuff.
And they had sheet piling on the job.
They had plenty of sheet piling, they knew what to do. So what I finally got them to do, by the way, how many think that if you've got dirty riprap and clean riprap, where would the clean go first? How many think building a berm out of clean rock as an outer, deflecto shield? So how many think we would have continued with clean rock, the edge, then when you put the dirty rock, and I'd use the clean rock to keep the current from eating the dirty rock fill edge? I'm hoping it would have, but that's what we did. That was the best I could do, is to get me clean rock. You know how much of an argument was to get clean rock? Well, how am I supposed to clean the rock? And how clean is clean?